you need to be flexible and agile and able to adapt. It's not terrifying, and you just go, okay, not what I was expecting. You would hate to miss an opportunity because you are so in your lane that you don't even see it, that you're not open to it. Just because you start a virtual events business today doesn't mean you're still going to have a virtual events business in its same iteration in a year's time, 5 years' time. That's the beauty of business. It can grow into whatever you want it to be.
Hi, Lorna. It's great to have you here. Thanks so much for agreeing to be interviewed on the Blue Light Leavers podcast. We've been talking about this for such a long time, and I'm so glad that we've managed to eventually nail it. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's good to finally get a date in, and let's get this done.
It is, definitely. You've got such an amazing story to tell as well. And I first heard your story actually at one of Alex's events. And so, yeah, it'd be great for other people to hear, what you've been through and the amazing things that you've created since. So could you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now? Just a little bit. We'll expand on it later on, but tell us what you're doing now, and then we'll go into your career, within the police service.
Sure. I've got two businesses now, MyOhMy Weddings and MyOhMy Events. MyOhMy Weddings is an LGBTQ plus wedding planning company, and MyOhMy Events is a business events company. So we mostly work in the kind of hybrid and online space. And it's good fun. Yeah.
Oh, you're doing amazing things as well. And honestly, we'll talk about it obviously through the podcast and how you pivoted and everything else through COVID. So yeah, it's fantastic. It really is. So what were you doing in the police service? If you could tell us a little bit about your career prior to being a business owner.
Sure. I was in the Met for 15 years. So I started out literally out of school as a baby CSI. And obviously did all my training, worked all around and about, spent my time progressing and retraining and constantly on the self-development path. I progressed to running the kind of a shift for the north, so coverage the north of London, and then moved into specialising in firearms. And kind of moved up through the ranks, kind of enjoying what I was doing, and quite a few, as I know a lot of people do, that pinch me moments that you get. And I was kind of involved in the delivery of forensics for the Olympics and stuff like that. So I got to be on the other side of the wire for the Olympics, and
wow.
Yeah, some real highs in my career. And then I kind of, about 13 years in, as with everything, budgets got cut, and all the forensic photographers got cut, and they were phenomenal at what they do, and that job obviously had to go somewhere, and it came to the scene examiners to do. And I had never really had an issue with bodies before. There was always that kind of handover period where you got to decompress and vent, and how's your day been, handing over to the late turn or whatever it was, and you'd always have a chat about it. And yeah, never had a problem. And then this one particular day, I think it was my 7th body in 7 days. I'm photographing, and it wasn't even that awful. All deaths are awful, but by the things that we see, it was fairly mild. And I just remember it was a late turn, and I thought, I'll just go to that one. It's right at the end of the shift, but it will help the night duty out. We've all been there. Zip along there, it won't take me long to do, and then I'll head off. And I remember getting there, and the officer on scene was green and sweaty, and it turns out they were very new in the job, first ever body, and this body was hanging behind the front door. I said, have you been in? No. Have you searched body? No. Have you done any of the things that kind of fall on your side of the fence? No. I wanted to wait for you. Okay, fine. So I ended up pushing my way into this house, and it was a tiny gap that I had to squeeze through because the weight of the body the other side. And I remember thinking, I now can't let the officer in here with me, because if they faint or pass out or anything, I can't get out, because it took 2 of us to push this door. So I did my thing. I also did their job for them, and then talk them through all of the roles and responsibilities that they had around arranging somebody to come and collect and all of that stuff. And I got back to the office and was absolutely furious. I was furious that I'd been put in that position. I'd been furious that that poor officer had no one with them, no one to walk them through that, no support, and would now be stood on a cordon on their own until, all the relevant actions took place. And I did have it out with their skipper and their governor and just said, this is wholly unacceptable. And then for the first night, that night, I dreamt about that body. I dreamt about that body and lots of others that I'd assumed that I'd put to bed. And that kind of grew, and it kind of grew into, I got really anxious about going to work. I started getting really upset about the thought of going to work, and I just thought, okay, something's not right here. I obviously need a bit of a break. I remember saying to my line manager at the time, I don't want to go off sick. I don't want to be on restricted duties. Can I just have a breather from bodies for a couple of shifts? I'll do everything else. I'll pick up all the other bits of work, but I just need some space. And long and short of the answer I got was, well, you don't get to pick and choose. That's kind of your job. You need to get on with it, type thing.
Right.
And I just remember thinking in that moment, right, okay, if that's how you treat people, I am going to get promoted. I'm going to have your job, and I'm going to do it better than you. That was kind of the touch paper that kind of lit a fire inside me, and I did. So I did get promoted out and left frontline, but actually moved into running the forensics lab. So team of 160 scientists, multi-million-pound budgets, lots of partnership working, quite different from what I had been doing, but actually really quite enjoyed it. Really stressful. All the forensics cases that are going to court come through that office. And it's Met's the only force that's got its own forensics lab. Everything else gets outsourced. So it's kind of a specialism. And again, I was working ridiculous hours. I started not sleeping. I would be lucky to get 3 hours a night. And started thinking, this is not great. It was just sheer volume of work, pressure. I was desperate to look after my team and my people and kind of protect them from the shit that's sliding downhill. So then it stops at my door. So it kind of got worse and worse, and I started getting really bad stress eczema, which started creeping up my neck and then started onto my face. Then what I now know was stress incontinence, so I could literally never be 20 minutes from the bathroom. So you'd often see me flying around the floor between meetings and stuff. And I was, my weight was fluctuating quite significantly. I was not in a healthy place. So I went to my bosses and said, I'm working crazy hours. Can I do compressed hours? I'm working the long days anyway. Can I just do 4 days a week? I'm not angling for every Friday off. I'm not angling for every Monday. Whatever the business needs, I just need one extra rest day a week to recover. The skirting lines were, if you had kids, we'd probably have to let you, but you don't. So flexible working doesn't really fit. Which was kind of the nail in the coffin for me. And I remember coming home and speaking to my other half at Easter, over the Easter bank holiday weekend, and she pretty much said, if you don't quit, I know I will end up sectioning you. So we need to do something about this. And that's when that weekend kind of tipped all our money banks onto the table and sat down and went through all our numbers and said, how are we going to afford this? If I do quit, how are we going to cope? And it had kind of crossed over. I'd started working with Alex and Shift to Success then, just because I knew there had to be something else. I'd already looked at sideways jobs in the NHS or sideways jobs in council, and I just thought, I know that I'm going to be jumping from the frying pan into the fire. I'm not sure that I want to hold that kind of responsibility anymore, and I'm certainly not in a place to do it right now. So yeah, pretty much went back to work after the bank holiday Monday, handed in my notice, and I still think I had to give 3 months notice because the role that I was in. So I was due to leave on the 30th of June, and even the week I had a countdown on my desk. This is how many weeks till Lorna goes. And I still think they thought I wasn't going to go.
Really?
Like, there was this real disbelief when I said, okay, but we need to hurry up with this decision making because I go in 2 weeks. Oh yeah, and yeah, I left. I walked out of the door on the 30th of June and never looked back.
Wow.
And incidentally, they split up my job and made it 3 people's full-time positions after I
Yeah.
left. So,
Funny that. Yeah.
yeah, because nobody
Yeah.
wanted it and it was too much, too
Yeah.
stressful.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
Wow.
that was June 2018.
Wow. So at that point, Lorna, had you made a decision as to the type of business that you were going in? Because I know, there's a lot of people that that I speak to, a lot of people within the Blue Light Leavers group who, would love to own their own business and be their own boss and not have to be managed and pick and choose your own annual leave, not have to apply, and all those sort of
Yeah.
amazing things. But did you have any ideas on what you were going to do when you left, or did you literally just cut it and run and just say, right, that's 3 months, and I'll move on from that point?
I kind of had an idea bubbling. So one of my outlets and one of the things that kept me sane for as long as I was, and I mean that in its genuine terms, was cake making. So I would make birthday cakes and Christmas cakes, but realised quite quickly you have to make a lot of cakes to make any amount of money. Or you look at making high-end cakes, and even that's a tough market to crack. So that moved me into kind of thinking, well, I've organised a few weddings, ours, my sister's, friends in America, and I had a little look around, and there wasn't really anyone that was doing wedding planning specifically for the LGBT market. Obviously, there's wedding planners, and I always say to people, if there are people doing this job already or running this business already, and they're making money, that means there's money to be made. So I kind of thought about it and thought, okay, let's give this a whirl. There's definitely space in the market for it. I have no idea how to run a business. I have no idea how to set up anything or start a Facebook group or anything. But this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend my evenings and weekends for the next 3 months getting this ready to launch. And the launch date of the business was the 30th of June. So I literally left my job and launched the business on the same day.
Wow.
And then, well, I wouldn't advise people to do it the way I did it. It was a bit of, I have to make this work because I've literally burnt my boats. There's no way back. And it's a lot of pressure to then have to make a success of a business because you've got no other option. And for the first couple of months, I did a couple of other jobs. I was Tesco's delivery driver. I worked in a coffee shop. A friend of mine had a coffee van, so I went and helped her out for events, just for cash to put into the Tesco's account. But fortunately, my first client came 4 weeks after launching. The second client came 4 weeks after that, and it kind of grew arms and legs from there. And don't get me wrong, it was blinking hard work, but there's something very different about working 12 hours for a job that you don't love and working 12 hours for yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Tell me about it. I was up to 1 o'clock this morning doing stuff. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But so how did you go about, we'll talk 2 things in a second, actually, if that's okay. The second thing will be the ideas and how you go about creating these ideas and thinking about business opportunities. But how did you go about picking up your first clients? Was it referrals from people who knew you, and or was it marketing? How did you go about doing that?
It was a lot of marketing. So as we launched, I pretty much just flooded Facebook with everything I had. And that was a lot of advice. I tend to come at my social media from a place of service. How can I help? What tips can I give?
Absolutely.
What can I share? Some pretty pictures. But at that stage, I didn't have any of my own real weddings to share. Making connections with as many other people in the industry as I could, trying to find other people like me who, and the wedding industry is quite divisive. You've got one side of the fence that's all about straight couples. They're usually skinny and blonde and look very pretty in their pictures and their catalogue fodder. And then you've got kind of the real people who celebrate couples in all their forms. So trying to find that tribe, trying to connect with them and say, you know what, I'm new, I'm starting out, this is what I want to do. Will you let me know if you've got anybody in the market? But my first couple found me on Facebook.
Okay.
They were searching around on Facebook and they happened to stumble across me, and we had a conversation, which obviously I was terrified about when we had our first chat, and then we had a meet up and the chemistry was just there.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it takes time and energy, but I always say coming at your marketing from a place of service
100%. Yeah, and you
will
do that
will be.
brilliantly. You do
Thank
that
you.
so well. You really do. It's you give so much. It's incredible. When you were reaching out to these other, I will go back to the ideas section.
No
It's just,
fat.
but when you were reaching out to people who are already in that arena and already, how were they with you? Because obviously there's a bit of competition then almost. And how did you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be haters. There's always going to be people that say, "I don't want you in my space because I'm the big fish in this small
Mm-hmm.
pond."
Mm-hmm.
But in the main, people just want other people to succeed. I
Mm-hmm.
was reaching out to photographers who are still my friends now, 4 years on, who said, "Great, we don't know anyone else that's doing what you're doing. Absolutely, we'd direct couples to you." Or let's think of ways we can collaborate and extend both of our networks. So it's good for me and it's good for you. I'd have florists reach out to me and say, "You know what, I am open and inclusive, but I don't have any same-sex couples on my books.
Mm-hmm.
If you have anyone, I'd love to work with you." And trying to make it a win-win-win. So a win for me, a win for them, and a
I
win
was
for
going
the
to ask
couple.
that. Yeah.
So trying to people just genuinely nice people want other people to win. I'm a firm believer
100%.
in put out some good energy and you'll get it back in spades. And
Mm-hmm.
and I'm the same. If anyone comes to me and says I'm new and starting out, I might drop them a line and say, "I've seen there's a style shoot that's happening on this day. I can't go, but maybe you should get in touch with them."
Mm-hmm.
Or I've got a wedding coming up. It's in your neck of the woods. I can't pay you a full amount because I've already agreed my fee, but if you want to come along, I can cover your expenses and you'll get a days of experience and take your own pictures, and that's your own content. Whatever I can do to give someone else a leg up
Incredible.
and generally, that's been my experience of business in general. People want people to succeed.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That's lovely. Really lovely. In terms of ideas, then, obviously, as we touched on earlier, lots of people would love to own their own businesses and things, but the big catch is I have no idea what I want to do. And it's the same when people move on to new jobs and new careers, obviously, as well. But but particularly with business, it's trying to work out what the gap is, if there is a gap, if there actually does it matter if there's not a gap, and how to come and create those ideas. How would you guide people and advise people on that?
I would first start with something that you don't mind doing. I would also have a think about, what do I find easy that other people find hard? And we were just talking before we came on air. So I pay someone to edit my podcast. Could I do it myself? Yes, I could. Do I want to? No, I don't. But that person that edits my podcast edits movies for a living. So editing my podcast takes them probably 4 minutes. They find it super easy, but I actually find it hard, so I'm willing to pay you to do it for me. What do you do every day that you don't even think about, you could do stood on your head? And the chances are, if you don't think about it, that's the thing you should be doing for other people. So my online events, I could run 1,000-person event tomorrow with very little prep because I find it easy. But other people find it utterly terrifying. So that's my business, doing things for other people. So if you find it easy to actually do, then you can focus on the marketing and stuff. It's so thinking about things like that. I would also say keep a notebook with you, and if ever you experience, and I think when you start to become aware of this, you notice it more. If you experience something that you think, God, that was awful and it could be so much better, that's a business idea. If you go to a restaurant and the service is naff, or you go to a training event and the health and safety brief is rubbish, or it could be absolutely anything. If you think, oh, if only I could be on board with this, I could have made that so much better, that's a business idea.
Love that.
And then scoping around the market and just thinking, if you think, right, I've got a cracking idea, I find social media really easy, so I'm going to do social media for other people. How big is the market that you want to dip your toe into? So for me, wedding planning brings in £3 billion a year. The government didn't think of that when they knocked weddings on the head for a year, but never mind. £3 billion a year. I only need 1% of that, and I'm living well. So that means that there can be 3 billion other wedding planners on and suppliers all taking their 1%, and we've all got a good living to make. There's plenty of money in that market. So just have a look at how much the industry is worth as well. How much are people spending on social media? How much are people spending on being a virtual assistant? And if it's something you find easy, and you need to have a passion for business, not necessarily a passion for the thing that you do, because I could do online events stood on my head. I don't adore them, but what I do adore is seeing people succeed, putting on an event and then walking away going, that was absolutely amazing, and I've just got 20 new clients out of it. That's the high for me. It's the business side of it, not the actual doing. And then I guess and this is a really cool tip that I took from Andrew Priestley, so I better give him a shout out for it, but he recommends going on and looking at the negative reviews. If you find a job or a business that you want to run and you think, well, where is my niche? How can I take up some space in this market? Go and look for all the negative reviews, because all the negative reviews are things that people want someone to do better. So it might be making something easier, making something faster, making something more usable, whatever it is. Pick up those negative reviews and make your niche in those pockets, because obviously other people are not doing them.
That's great advice. Brilliant guidance. Yeah, definitely. So as you, I mean, I remember you absolutely flying and things going so well.
Thanks.
And all of a sudden we had COVID.
Yes.
And that obviously, clearly, as you touched on earlier, that had a massive impact. So how did that impact you, I guess, on a personal level? Obviously, we know business-wise, it was completely crippled. But, how did that impact you on a personal level, and what did you do about it?
So I can remember the moment. So MyOhMy Events had started. It was a very baby company in the summer of 2019, and that was purely because some people reached out to me and said, hey Lorna, you organise stuff for people, can you help us with a conference? So yeah, fine, it seems a natural string to add to the bow, and it was always the idea that I'll do conferences in the winter season, weddings in the summer season, and kind of keep that rolling. And we were actually booked for the whole of 2020. I had clients end to end. And then I remember we went skiing, and it was our first holiday since I'd left the job. So it was a bit of a milestone, and it was in the March of 2020. And I remember sitting in France, reading the news, catching up after a day out. And I just remember saying to my other half, I think this could be really bad. I think I might be just about to lose all of my businesses. And I'd only just started paying myself, so we were just getting back on that even keel and thinking, well, now what am I going to do? I couldn't see how I can get through this. And I just thought, okay, what can I do? What do I know how to do? If we were locked up for a month, how naive were we? If we were locked up for a month, how do we make sure that these businesses don't fall over? Because a lot of businesses were depending on me to run their events for them. And I thought, okay, Zoom, let's do Zoom. I've been using Zoom for client calls for years. If it works for 2 people, it must work for 20 people. If it works for 20 people, it must work for 200 people. So I remember we landed on the 16th of March, and France pretty much closed its doors behind us, and I pretty much spent 72 hours awake learning how to use every piece of camera equipment, mic equipment. How can we make Zoom work in an interactive space? So not just a flat, we didn't even know how to share slides then. It was a really clunky thing to do. How can we make this space as interactive as possible so that my clients can say to their attendees, don't worry, we're still going to go ahead, we're just going to do it in a slightly different way. And it kind of grew from there, really. And I started saying, I've got a lot of friends in business now, and I didn't want their businesses to fall over. So just started putting on LinkedIn almost daily, here's what I figured out overnight, please use it if you find it helpful. I found out that this button does this, or there's been a new development in the past 48 hours. This is what it does. This is how you can use it. And I just put on a couple of workshops, and really anything I learned, I shared. And it kind of grew from there, really. People said, and it's that whole place of service. I can show somebody how to use just about any piece of streaming software. But most people came to me and said, Lorna, can you do the streaming bit? I'll do the presenting bit because I know my content. And it grew arms and legs from that, really. And we shifted all of our client base that we had booked in, we shifted them online within 3 days. So we kept all of our clients.
Wow.
I thank them for trusting me, because most of them didn't know what I was talking about, but trusted that I could make it work. And then we started just picking up clients left, right and centre. Pretty much every time I logged on to LinkedIn, there'd be another request for a phone call. And that's how we grew from me to me and 5 others in the space of a year. I was literally taking on and training people as fast as I possibly could, because I was the bottleneck. I couldn't physically do any more events.
That's incredible. And I do remember the stuff that you were putting out. It was so useful, and I was grabbing stuff and nicking stuff as well, and it was just incredibly helpful. It was, and there was no one else doing it. It was just, and you were just giving and giving. It was so impactful, and I'm so pleased it's worked out for you, because obviously, I mean, things are just going from strength to strength. So as obviously restrictions have eased and people are going, obviously we can now have weddings and parties and a sort of bit of normality again. How have things developed for you, both from the weddings perspective and from events?
Yeah, so I kind of work the weddings now from a referral basis. The marketing and the social media is constantly ticking over. I have an amazing person who does my social media, and I can pick and choose the clients that I work with now. And some of the team really like doing the weddings as well, so I can kind of share the love literally over the summer. But the events business is still going strong, and I'm now re-educating people that yes, we're going back face-to-face. Lots of people are desperate to go back to face-to-face meetings, but the world has shifted and it will never go back. Where you might get 300 people in a room, now you're struggling to get 100 people in a room, but you've still got the demand. And I remind businesses, in COVID, you were global because people could access you from anywhere and you could be anywhere. Why would you then want to shrink that back down? So stay in the hybrid space. And that's where a lot of our work is at the moment, in the hybrid space, making sure that if people are watching online in their pajamas because they're sensible and don't want to travel, that they're getting a good experience. It's clear audio, it's really slick visuals. We're doing a lot of production and adding things like ticker tapes and making it look much more like a Sky News or an ITV production, but also one that they can get involved in. So how can they interact with the speaker? How can they get involved in some of the group exercises and the group work, and really building that immersive experience in both spaces.
And so what have you got coming up? I mean, you've had some amazing traveling experiences as well. It's been incredible. It really has. So what have you had, and what have you got coming up?
So we have had quite a lot of non-profits reach out, and some of those UK based, some of them in the US. So if they started to go back, they pretty much said, you were with us in COVID, you'll stay with us forever now. That's it, we've adopted you. So I was in Philly in October, and we're back in Boston in June. We pretty much got booked instantly as I was walking out the room. Put this date in your diary for next year. We've got about 9 what I would call big conference events. So several hundred people in a room and large budgets, which is great because it just means I'm now training the team that I did train to do virtual. I'm now training them to do hybrid. So they're learning, they're getting new skills, they're adding strings to their bows. I will probably have to take on people that I can call in that are camera operators or want to be camera operators, just because it's easier to teach someone else to do it than it is to do it all myself. So yeah, we're going all right. And I mean, we've got a couple of organisations that have said to us, you know what, rather than hire somebody on the books and then pay them sick leave and pension contributions and all of that. Can we just give you our entire events program? Here you go. We run 100 learning events for the year. We'll just let you get on with it. And for them, we do everything from ticketing to attendees to all the keep warm sequences, all the post-event stuff as well as the running the event on the day.
Wow.
So yeah, it's growing and evolving all the time.
Yeah, it's so cool. It really is. It's and I actually you won't remember because there was a few of us, but I was at one of your online events during COVID. Actually, you ran fairly early on, and I was on that, which was just fantastic. But it's just amazing.
The summit.
It was the summit.
And that I purely ran that to prove to a client that we can run a summit online and it can be interactive and engaging. But I got a couple of really good speakers in, and just starting to test the water. And we're doing it again in March. I'm wanting to stretch how far we can push this whole hybrid thing. So we're running an International Women's Day event, but it's going to be global. So we've got speakers from around the world, attendees from around the world, multiple time zones, multiple streams. Wow. So if you don't like the speaker in one stream, you can drop into a speaker in a different stream.
Wow.
And it's going to be hybrid. So I'm just figuring out the working parts on that at the moment. But yeah, I'm just in the planning phase. So we're just looking for sponsors, speakers, and yeah, there'll be loads on LinkedIn about it. So if anyone pricks up their ears and goes, "Oh, I want to get involved," they definitely can do.
I tagged a few people yesterday that are extraordinary speakers and have amazing stories to tell. So I tagged a few yesterday on that post. So
and it's purely that if I can do it and make it work for me and my business, it means I can say, look, it works. And we all learn as a team, but I carry the risk because it's my event. Rather than somebody paying me a lot of money and expecting it to work, I can prove that it does.
Yeah. There's two things I just want to quickly touch on. The first one is, did you ever visualize or imagine that things would be where they are now in terms of what you created, back in June and on June 30th? What year was that? Did you say that was
2018?
2018. Okay. So did you ever imagine that in that period of time, and having gone through a global pandemic as well, which is effectively, nullified what you were doing, where you are now, was that something that you had in your head in terms of visualization, or is this sort of just grown and grown as a result of what you've done?
It has been very organic. And I think starting out in business, I really tried not to think too far ahead, because if I thought too far ahead, it all felt very overwhelming and undoable. Not doable. That's bad grammar. Not doable. So I tried not to. I tried to think, okay, what am I doing this week, which is going to get me to the end of the month's objectives? What small things can I do today? So just keep making those tiny steps forward, because when I looked too far ahead, I thought, well, this is never going to work. How is anybody going to, how am I going to get clients consistently? How am I going to, it's too much. So actually, I think as a business owner, you need to be able to have focus, have a goal, absolutely, but break that down into daily tasks, daily steps, and that constant small stepping forward. But I also think you need to have, kind of like skiing, I guess, soft knees. You need to be flexible and agile and able to adapt. So if an opportunity presents itself, or you need to move in a different direction because the world shifts, it's not terrifying, and you just go, okay, not what I was expecting. How can we make that work? How can I weave that in? Or, you would hate to miss an opportunity because you are so in your lane that you don't even see it, that you're not open to it. So Richard Branson knocks on your door and says, I like your product, can I buy it? But you're so in, no, I'm building a business. This is what I'm doing. This is the direction I'm going in. You need to be open to opportunity. You need to be not anchored to the what is now, but what could be. And just because you start a virtual events business today doesn't mean you're still going to have a virtual events business in its same iteration in a year's time, 5 years' time. That's the beauty of business. It can grow into whatever you want it to be.
That personal mind shift as well, from being an employee and, being so bogged down in the we're just bogged down in the weeds with everything that you do on a day-to-day basis. And then the mindset that you are now, listening to what you were saying early on about, what you were doing as an employee, obviously within the Met and the work that you were doing there, and listening to your talk now, I mean, it's just amazing. It really is. It's the, that difference, that mindset shift is extraordinary. And, how's it impacted you from a well-being and a sort of mental health perspective as well? And obviously you are incredibly busy, but you've got, a team helping you now as well. So how have you found the change, the shift in sort of well-being and mind and, mental health?
I would say that my eyes have been opened. I would say that without getting too woo-woo, that I experience life more. I don't have that constant armor that we all do it. You put it on to survive. You put that, I don't feel anything and nothing affects me. You have to put it on to survive. But by doing that, you also block out some of the good stuff. You miss some of the good stuff. Whereas I would say I'm much more present now. I'm much more in the moment. The beauty of being in control of my own business. And when I sit and think, and I feel stressed that, we need 5 more clients this month in order to hit that target. The only person that can control that is me. So therefore, if I do the work and I get the clients, I also get all the reward. I'm not working for anybody else. So there's that real sense of control and ownership. And I've always loved developing people. That was the biggest part that I enjoyed about my job, was seeing my team grow and thrive and be whatever they wanted to be. So actually being able to take on other people and let them do the stuff that makes them happy and then pay them for the privilege is an honor as well. But I just love that I can, so I'm going to knock off hopefully tomorrow. I've got a to-do list in front of me of stuff. Does it light me up? No. Does it need doing? Absolutely, it needs doing. But I know as soon as I've done that, my Christmas starts. I can do whatever I want to next week. And if somebody reaches out to me with a really exciting opportunity, I can take the call. I could pencil something in, or I could leave it until January when we come back. It's that freedom and control and space to breathe and time to be aware of what I need. So if I'm not having a good day, or if I feel like rubbish when I wake up, I can go back to bed. I don't do it often because you don't make any money doing that, but you have that freedom. It is quite life-changing. I think if in a partnership, it takes a lot of communication and a lot of understanding. My other half is still in the job. So there's and I'm very grateful that I had that support when I did leave. And I know not everybody has that, but being able to communicate that and she sees that I'm in a much, much better place. It also does mean that I have to do the food shop and I'm more likely to walk the dogs because, I have that flexibility in my diary. But I'll take that if that's the worst that happens.
Yeah.
And that is my mantra is, if it all goes tits up, the worst that happens in life is I need to go and get a job.
Yeah.
And if that is the worst that can happen to you, I'm all right with that.
Yeah. Incredible.
That's a do for me.
Incredible. What an amazing story. And I'm so sorry it's taken so long to get this.
I hope it was worth the wait.
Absolutely worth. Oh, incredible. It's so inspirational. Well done. It's and I really appreciate your time as well. I know how busy you are, so it's really kind of you. Is there anyway, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you? Obviously, I'm guessing through Instagram and potentially LinkedIn as well. Sure.
Yeah, we're on everything. Either MyOhMy Weddings or MyOhMy Events. Type either into Google and you'll find we'll be the first up on the pages. But LinkedIn, find me under Lorna Reeves on LinkedIn. I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody that needs to have a conversation. If people want to get involved in the International Women's Day event, they absolutely can. Find all the details on LinkedIn. If you're looking to go into events, we've got the MyOhMy Events podcast on everywhere you get your podcasts.
I was just about to, I was going to feed into exactly that.
All the usual places.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks, Lorna. Thanks so much for your time. Honestly,
you're very welcome.
Incredible. Fantastic talking with you and look forward to catching up again soon.
Speak soon.
Well, what an amazing inspirational interview, and it was an absolute joy speaking with Lorna. It really was, and she's just so thoughtful, incredibly kind, and she just gives so much. So definitely worth connecting. If you haven't done already, then please do, and get in touch with her. So if you like what you heard, then please leave a review, and you can do that on Apple and Spotify. And you can also obviously find out more through bluelightlevers.com. We've also got the Academy, which is one of the tabs at the top of the website. And there we do loads and loads of live events. We've got subject matter experts and weekly live catch-ups, Ask Me Anything, and all sorts about CVs, LinkedIn, how to set those up, mental health, well-being, tons and tons of information through the Academy. And if you've got any questions about that, you can obviously get in touch with me through Andy at bluelightlevers.com. Thanks ever so much for listening. As always, I'm incredibly grateful for all of you that spent time listening to this. And we look forward to speaking again soon. Take care. Bye-bye for now.